Same sort of scenario, I guess. 2006, 2007 league championship, Challenge Cup win, and you've got another struggle to recruit players. And you mentioned Ashley Tate disappearing off to Sheffield. Was that a bit of a shock that he left up there, to go up there?
Yeah, because we were the team at that point. But obviously, I think financially it was beneficial for him to go there. I mean, even during them times, and I don't want this to sound like we were all successful because we weren't paying guys. We were paying guys, but we weren't paying what the big clubs could pay, and had the potential to play. But we kind of not guaranteed success, but we were okay for another 50, 100, 150 pound a week. You're going to have a chance to win here. You like it here, blah blah blah. So we kept the core that way. But Sheffield got into him, and he's probably thinking, well, what else can I do here? Maybe, I want to, and I mean, I remember him. He told me a great story that he was petrified to ring me, and he took him a couple of days to have the guts to ring me because he knew what the reaction would be, and he was right, because I thought so much of him. He was my captain, and I wasn't best pleased, but I respected his decision, and he went on, and he's had a great career, hasn't he, Ashley? Unbelievable career. And when we won that night in Dundee in the B&L, before he went and lifted the trophy, he skated over to me because this is the first one I've ever won. It's the first trophy I've ever won. So we were all kind of growing together, and Ashley's won a lot, over his career. But losing him, because I know what your next question's going to be. I wanted to maintain the status quo, and I went after the number one British player in the league, and that was probably as a little dig to Ashley, but I didn't mean it that way, or to Sheffield. But we went after Jonathan Weaver, and Weaves was a great player. He really, really was a great player. And Heavey was his agent, and I tell you, this was intense. I got Bob Phillips on one phone to Heavey, me on the other phone to Heavey, and we're offering this, offering that, offering this, offering that, offering this, offering that, and trying to sell the club. And it really was. It was over about a 2-3 hour. I remember Heavey saying to me, "Jesus Christ, I'd never do this again." And at the end of it, I said, "Right, Heavey, we're going to give you a tickle. Send him my way." And but no, Heaves was straight down the line, and we sold, what we were about, and Heaves was living up in Ayr, so we had to move the family all the way down, from Ayr at that point. But that was a massive signing for us, and pretty intense. But I'm glad we got him.
Indeed, and that was part of that continued success. But another player that you also brought back that year was Matty, and he had a few seasons away from the Blaze, and then Matty comes back, and that was perhaps a little bit of a shock bringing him back. Because he was playing in it was Telford at the time.
I think as a coach, you want to plug the gaps, and I don't mean rude to being rude, because the good players plug gaps, and I knew what I was going to get from him every day, every night, every practice. I knew his personality. I knew he was a very, very underrated player. A great thing when I don't want to skip forward, but while we're on Matty, I remember Derek Campbell saying to me after 6 or 7 weeks of signing for us in 2009, and he said in practice, he goes, "I now know why you win." And he was talking about how we practiced and how we worked away from, and it was intense. We were an intense group, because that's the only way you can be if you want success. You can't play at it. If you play at it, you're not going to win. You're not going to be successful. And he was alluding to Matty in that situation. That I thought Matty was just an average Joe guy that kind of hung around, and he says it's far from it. So yeah, and Matty's he's a great team guy, and he was a grerait player for us over the years, and it was good to bring him back. Yeah, because I forgot he was in Telford. You just reminded me of that, because he went to Italy, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then yeah. So no, I was happy to bring Mateus back, because I knew what he'd bring us. You can't have 20 superstars. You can't keep 20 superstars happy. You know, you've got to have the guys that are going to be block shotting PK guys and maybe not eat the minutes of some of the other guys, but they're not going to moan, they're not going to groan, they're going to give you what they have. And that's all part of your recruitment and putting the right thing together. And if you don't have people that accept their roles, you cannot be successful. And I go to, you know, Morsey, who played in the NHL, Stewie, wherever I played them, they accepted it. Matty, wherever I played him, he accepted. Peasy accepted it. Tommy Watkins, forward, left wing, right wing, centre, you know, accepted it. And these were key guys and components for us. There
were a number of big name, sort of very iconic players in the Blaze roster over that sort of time period of six years and 4 league championships. Would you think that any of their numbers should have been retired by the club now? I mean, Neil Martin's one that kind of springs to mind and often gets mentioned, but there are quite a few others who haven't. Is there anyone you think could be?
Well, like I said to you earlier, I thought, you know, what a Peasy and what a Tommy did for the club all through these successful years. No, they weren't the superstars, but they were the glue. Matty, you know, a Poirier, you know, he came in the BNL days. But, you know, the Neil Martin changed the franchise. I mean, I think what he did when we signed him, it told the whole of British ice hockey, you know, okay, they're serious here. This is a serious player. And, you know, he was a great-looking kid. He was a great hockey player. He was personal. And he was the face over the years. There's no doubt about that. He was the face. And probably Neil's shirt, you know, not probably, it does deserve to be up there. Because I think he brought everything on the ice and off the ice. And you know, kind of galvanized what we were at that point, and he was a huge part of it.
He had one more year, didn't he, in Denmark? Was it Aalborg? He played in one more year.
You know what? When I signed in Schwenningen, funny story. He said, "Will you stop coaching the teams I played for?" That was the text when it came out, because obviously I coached him in Coventry, I coached him in I coached Aalborg, and I coached Schwenningen. So that was quite a funny text. But no, he was a massive part of what we were about at that point. And yeah, I think he deserves that, as others do.
And then the team had kind of I think he moved on at the end of that year, and then 09-010 was the final championship, wasn't it? The fourth in 6 years. And the makeup of the team was so different. Just a couple of standouts, because you had Calder, you know, down the stretch he was incredible. I think it was 2 hat-tricks in the last 3 games he scored. And then you got Luke Fulgham chipping in with 48 goals over 56 games.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I think of all the, you know, if you roll back a year, the 2007-8 year, was it? A couple of years. Calder was scoring goals for fun, big goals. So I think he got 49 goals or something that year, and he was unbelievable. And then we brought Folgy in on the 2009-10 year from Manchester. I liked him in Manchester, and good shot, you know, good speed. And I think I'd split DC and Colds up at that point, where I don't think DC ever forgive me for that. And but, you know, again, it was Colds sacrificing what he could have got offensively for the good of the team, you know, and putting him on another line. And that's the kind of players we had. And it was always about the team first, always. And that's what we preached, you know, the coaches preached, and what this core group preached night in, night out. And everybody likes their points. Everybody likes their, you know, to play with people they're comfortable with. But the bigger picture is the team. So, I mean, to win 4 championships in 6 years is some going, you know. It's some going. For a club that was a mid-sized club.
Yeah.
You know, we were a mid-sized club, and there's no doubt about that. And, you know, and I think maybe the team that won the championship, I mean, Weaver was excellent, absolutely excellent last year. We brought Soupy in that year as well, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
And Hershey was big for us, really big for us. And I think that was the team that on paper you think, crikey, how did that win? You know, and I think that was one of my funnest years, because it was just the togetherness together and what it took to win on a nightly basis together. And it was, you know, I mean, I brought Chubbs in from Basingstoke. And I knew with Chubbs I was taking a calculated risk, because his lifestyle away from the rink at times was his downfall. Because I tell you, he's as talented as a player as I've ever coached, and pure natural talent. And we got a good year. With the following year, nightmare, but we got a good year out of him, a really good year out of him. But and then I remember, he'll hate me for saying this. He hates me anyway. Danny. And I made a decision that, crikey, even when I think back, I get nervous about it now. I left Danny Stewart out of the game. I made them all warm up. I think we had 11 imports. We got healthy. Or Chubbs had a bad ankle. And after the warm-up, I took Danny out of the lineup. And we were playing Belfast, I believe. And Chubbs ended up scoring the game. I think he scored the game. And I knew by taking Danny out of the lineup that, Jesus Christ, them players, I mean, he wasn't a happy camper because he was a proud man, but I did it deliberately, and it was only ever going to be for that one game, because I thought that would galvanise and scare the bejesuses out of everybody else going forward. And I remember Danny coming back after that, and Danny was a big reason down that stretch. I mean, I know Cold scored back-to-back hat tricks. Did he score? So incredible in the last two games. But I tell you, that Danny Stewart was something else down that stretch as well. And, I'd hurt his pride. And instead of him going and crying about it, like, people do now, he went and said, I'll show you, and I'll show you the rest of the team. That will never happen again. So it was a kick in the backside, but it was a gamble, because he may and probably didn't deserve to be left out. But I just felt that it would give us the kick up the arse down the stretch that we needed to get over the line, because I don't think if we hadn't have won that night in Edinburgh, I honestly don't think we'd have beat Belfast at home. We were so beat up. Matty was beat up. Brian Lee his knee was blown.
Yeah.
It was shot at that point, and we crawled over the line another good story. About that time, we're up in Edinburgh, and there was a minute and a half to go, and there was a face-off. So our bench was in the offensive zone in Edinburgh. So we were in the offensive zone, face-off right by us. And I put a line out there, and I didn't put Calder out there. And on any other situation, 99 times out of 100, I would have pulled Hershey at that point, called a timeout, pulled Hershey. And I just didn't have a feeling. No. Luke is screaming at me, Tomo, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I was like, no. And I wanted Calder to come into the play on a 6-on-5 situation rather than start with. And Calder's looking at me on the bench. Are you going nuts? I mean, you're top scorer here for the last how many years, and I'm like, just sit there. And I looked at Hershey, and when we lost the draw, I think it was Jeff Hutchins, skated up, and he'd have had an empty net and it'd have been game over. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying this isn't because it was a magical coaching manoeuvre. I'm not saying that at all. But I just had a hunch, and as a coach, you got to go with your hunch. Mm-hmm. And then we picked the puck up, and I think DC and when or Stewie maybe got us into the zone. And Colds found that little high pocket, and I think it was DC made past him from below the goal line. And he got that game tire, I think it was. It was the game tire. Then we went on to win in overtime. And I tell you, that was some party on the way home. We got Buxy Poo to get off his wallet that night. Stopped in the outdoor by the rink, and I think we emptied it. And that was some drive home. That was a great night. Great feeling.
Stu, on a complete tangent, was that your stag night?
That was my stag night.
You've left this out. You put a plan together, and Stu left this out. I can't believe you gave me this bit to do, brother. I can't believe it. Because Tomo, for him and his stag do, they went up to Edinburgh to watch that game.
Yeah,
brilliant.
So we had it booked before the fixtures came out that season that we were going to go up to Edinburgh that weekend, and then when the fixtures came out, Blazer up in Edinburgh that Saturday night. So I say to friends, half of the guys going are hockey people, half the guys have zero interest in hockey whatsoever. And then we sort of say that if it's an important game, we'll go. If it's not an important game, we'll go off and we'll do some drinking and stuff elsewhere. And as it gets closer and closer to the game, it's like, oh, this is going to be an important game. And as it turns out, it's not just an important game; it's the important game of the season that we're there for. And I had a friend of mine from Basingstoke who was up with us, who then bumped into Greg Owen and Cruikshank, who were surprised that someone from Basingstoke there. So it was big night for me.
Yeah, another one, Greg and Crooker. Crooker came across from Sheffield. They'd let him go, and Greg, who was one of the top Brits at that point. He was another big, another big help for us. And I don't think I've mentioned Russell Cowley was stellar career and a solid player for us. All over his career, played in every position. Smart guy, smart hockey player.
Yeah, Chuck called him the smartest player in British hockey.
Yeah, he's really good away from the puck defensively. Really, really smart. Yeah. Really smart.
Stu was not going to get away without telling that story. Sorry, Tom, I couldn't help it.
I love it.
Had to be done. But I mean, you haven't talked about Jason Robinson or Brian Lee much. What a double act they were at the back end through that period of time.
Yeah, I mean, two warriors as well, like two absolute warriors, and I love them both as players, fully committed. They'd fight, they'd hit, they'd do whatever it took. They'd clock up the minutes. Robbo was a tough kid,
Oh yeah,
Robbo was a seriously tough kid, and I remember when we won it, he said to me, "Thank you for bringing me here," and he was just elated because I don't think he'd won at that point.
No,
at that point of his career, and he was. The pair of them were really popular, weren't they?
Oh yeah, because
with their style and how they played, and with Hershey behind them as well, and it was. I signed Hershey on the back. He'd been let go by Oldberg, and he wanted something to prove, and a bit like Curtis Huppy. When he was let go in Belfast. I mean, I like to get guys on the rebound that wanted to have something to prove and to show, So, and Curtis scored a lot of goals for us in the year that he was here as well. Yeah. So, great memories.
Yeah, 100%. Huppy was on a line with Klutz and Stewie in that Salzburg game that we showed a couple of weeks ago. Brilliant line. That was.
Well, Klutz was a good hockey player.
Oh, yeah.
He was. You know what? I mean, I signed a guy in Sheffield, Gillian Debian, who was a real man. Real player, real man, very much like Sylvain in how they played, how they approached the game, how they talked to their teammates, how they led. Sylvain was I pretty much chased Sylvain for 6 weeks, thought I'd got him done, and then boom, no, I'm moving on. I'm going back to North America, and it's fate. It must be fate, And about a month later, I was ready to pull the trigger on the player, and I'd forgot all about Klutz, not forgot about him, but he'd gone, he's true. And I just got an email: "Is the job still open?" And I'm like, yes. So yes, we got lucky. We got lucky on that one.
Cracking player. And through this, we talked about a couple of the little rivalries that were bubbling up, and it comes we talked about the Cardiff Challenge Cup game, talked about a couple of the others, but Nottingham at that point were really starting to come on, weren't they? And Corey was, a cracking player. Unbelievable hockey player, Corey Nielsen. And then he turned out to be a brilliant coach as well. And that rivalry was amazing and intense as well.
You his agent, Ed?
No. I wish.
He was a great player, and he's a tremendous job. And he is a very, very good coach. You're absolutely right. And we had a super rivalry against Team Hollywood, and that was the rivalry at that point. I know Sheffield said it, but they'd kind of moved away from it, and that really was a big rivalry. And when I think back about, we were in the frame to winning leagues. We won 4 out of 6. We were still kind of knocking the doors on the years that we didn't win, and I honestly believe we would have won more playoffs if we hadn't have won as many leagues, because it really did take everything out of us to get over the lines there. And I wouldn't swap that for a minute. I mean, the playoffs is 4 games, and that's not knocking other teams that have gone on. I mean, we won one in Coventry. I won one in Sheffield, which is, unbelievable double overtime game. Unbelievable. I'd never, ever want to lose them memories. But You know, to win it over 52, 54, 56, whatever games it was at that league, it's a grind. And I've spoke to coaches, you know, since that have coached here in Europe, and they said they've never ever felt pressure like it is in the UK, because it's all about the playoffs abroad. And it's about getting in, you know, to the qualification rounds, the playoff rounds, and really where you finish. It's nice to finish first, it's great, but it's not of major importance. And, you know, and coaches have said to me, I just couldn't believe that every night was like a game 7. Mm. And, you know, you'd lose 2 games and you're threatening to be fired and you're this. And I say, yeah, welcome to British hockey. Because mentally it is very, very, very draining that way. So I would never, you know, I'm lucky enough to, I've won 5 Elite League championships in, I don't know, 14 years, 13 years or whatever it is. And that's some going. I tell you, that's some going. And I've had very good players and good people around me that have helped me achieve that.
God, we could go off on that tangent for a while, because of the chronology where we're at right now, we're on the cusp of your last year, and at this point, Twitter's coming along and social media's coming along, but it was a totally different ball game. You talk about stories like in the 4Ps and Old Orleans and the Orange House, and then you know you fast forward a decade. You're in 2012, 2013. Your last year as a coach at Coventry. And that was a great side as well.
Yeah. You know, I was really proud of that year. I mean, the following years, I mean, you know, I think what did it for me was, there you go. It was a terrible business decision. I'm not pointing any fingers. It was a terrible business decision. And it divided my club, which was Coventry. And not divided it because the others didn't support it. Of course they wanted. They're Coventry through and through and still are. But it divided our time and our focus. And I was always about, you know, Andy Buxton for years, you say, chase the edge, chase the edge. And we were chasing. We were the best team in the UK and had been for, you know, if you count both leagues, the best part of a decade. And now we've got a problem of Hull. And this is nothing against Hull, but I didn't give a hoot about Hull. You know, and I really felt, and that did. And then the Cassidy sponsor, who were brilliant. The Cassidy boys were brilliant. You know, we got a proper major sponsor, and they had money troubles at times. I mean, it was that time after, you know, where the economy was starting to dip and stuff like that, and the club went into trouble. And I remember, you know, I gave up the GB job to focus totally on Coventry, and I loved the GB job, and I think I took that a long way. You know, in the period that I had there, and not just me. You know, the people that are there are still the people that I brought there. You know, the backroom staff and Andy and everybody else, and now they've gone on and they're doing great things. And you know, I have some bitterness, some real bitterness, because that's what kind of changed it for me. Mm. Because, you know, but hey, that's life. That's life. So the following year after we'd won the league was, and I got a couple of signings wrong that year, you know, but then we didn't have the funds to change it, which frustrated me, you know. And but the year after, the Brad and Greg Leib year, and you know, I watched some of the highlights of the game, and the reason, you know, Craig rang me to ask me to do this was because, you know, have you been watching the retro games? And I haven't, not all of them, but I've been coming in and out, and you know, and I think of some of the teams we had, and you know, we had a third line of Smith, a young Venus, and who was the other guy on there? I mean, there was no other teams that were knocking on the door to win that had young kids, you know, because we just didn't have the budgets of the other clubs. But our top 6 was as good as any. But we, you know, it was our depth. But I really enjoyed that year. It was the year I was going to leave, and I knew in my heart of hearts we weren't good enough. We didn't have the budget, and we weren't good enough to go and win a league. But maybe we could sneak a playoff. You know, because on our night, if we were healthy, and you know, to finish 4th and knock Sheffield out and get to the final 4 I think was a really good effort when you understand the dynamics of what we had and what we'd been through, because it was a stressful period, and it took a hell of a lot out of all of us, and emotionally, I was spent.
Yeah, and there's a lot to unpick there. I'll be totally honest, but I want to come back because you've talked about some real legends. You talked about Ashley Tate, you talked about Jonathan Weaver, you talked about Russ Cowley. Ross Venus was just breaking through then as a kid. And what a career he's carved for himself. And he's still got such a massive one ahead of him if he wants it to. You must be so proud that you're GB coach up until pretty much that point. And you got this kid that you're bringing through, another star at this level.
Well, you know, and Peasy's got to take some credit for that, because I'm the one that ultimately made the decision, yay or nay. But you build up around you. And for my whole career, I've always tried to give British kids an opportunity. Some have made it, some haven't made it. Some have gone on and done great things. And that's because I'm British and I have a vested interest in these young kids having an opportunity. And Peasy picked this kid out from the juniors. Selby was the other kid I was talking about, was playing on the wing side in the Bradley, Greg Lee and season. And we brought him down and he used to get time off from school and practice with us, and we saw something there and something that we wanted to develop going forward. And I must say, I think Chuck did a good job in because he was kind of a scoring guy. We thought offensively we might be able to play him with a couple of imports, but he was very slight. He was a kid, 16, 17-year-old kid, And Chuck kind of taught him the defensive side of the game, and now Stewie's bringing back the other things that we all saw, and he's taking him to the next level now. So I think it's great that these kids. And he's only 24, 25, and everybody expects him to be the finished article at 18, 19, because he's been around for 3 or 4 years at that point. So, no, I was always big on the young Brits coming through, as I did in Sheffield and in Coventry and all them years. And so did Corey. I give Corey his credit. He was another coach that would push for, we had a great rivalry, and at times we probably didn't like each other, and because that was competition. Nothing other than that. I respected him, and I still respect him, and I do like him. So, but you've got to give these kids the opportunity, because if they don't get in on an elite league team now, they're not going to make the jump because what's underneath isn't good enough. So that's what you've got to do. But yeah, I'm thrilled for Ross, and I thought he had a fabulous season, and on the bits and bobs that I saw. Yeah.
It's a good comparison, actually, because Corey brought through some really good British players that are in the...
Yeah, he did. And Corey invested in them, in his time. And so, he must take some credit for that as well.
Yeah, but going back to that 2012-2013 team, because we've just seen it. It was Matt Bolesky was the lockout import that year. And he totally bought in. That's the thing. Yeah, that with Wade as well. Some guys I think came over just to kind of tick over a bit. But Matt from day one bought in, didn't he?
Well, we want a professional show, and we want a winning show. These guys come out of the NHL, and they were like, "Wow, didn't expect this," And I got a good story for you on. I think it's crazy. I think we paid Bolesky. I know we paid Wade £400 a week, and I think both of their insurances were $2,000 a week, which they had to pay, which was really quite ironic, But they wanted to play, and I remember I spoke to Bolesky, and I went back to his agent, and I spoke to Bolesky, and I went back to his agent, and another player that was offered me was Bonino, the guy that
Nick
was
Bonino.
Yeah. So I went back to Bolesky, and I said, "Listen, I'm signing Bonino." I says, "We've done the deal." I says, "You've got 20 minutes to give me an answer, or whatever it was." It was something. So Bolesky comes back and goes, "Right, okay, sort the flights out. Let's get over there." So I pulled a bit of a porky there just to see if I could push him over the edge. But again, what a guy! What a superb guy! And only went on to make 20+ mil after he left us. So he hasn't had a bad career, has he?
Yeah.
And a bad payday.
No, he did all right. And one final character to talk about. I think you can't not talk about the team until about Mike Egner. After all, he went through his career as well. He had Guillaume Barré, which could have ended his career completely. And he fought, this was a few years after, he fought through that to come back and play at this level. An unbelievable character, unbelievable human being. And he's in hockey now. And you talked about Danny Stewart, and it's those characters that will be successful in hockey after their playing careers are done.
Yeah, Eggy's another one. He's a good hockey man. He's a good bloke. He played hard. He knew what it took. And just good guys. Just, really, really, really good guy. We had a lot of good guys. I tell you, if you weren't good, you didn't stay very long. Put it that way. And we didn't have many of them. Because, again, we had a group over the years that would, the coach didn't have to straighten everybody out every minute of the day, because, you got that Stewart doing it, or Cloutier doing it, or Lehman doing it, or Neil Martin doing it, or Barry Moore doing it, and they became an extension of you. And what it was about. And I tell you, we've had some we've had some Barneys. I mean, and it's got nasty. It's got really. Any of them ever whacked me, they'd knock me out, you know. But it was the drive to win. It was never about me. It was never about them. It was about us winning and whatever it took to win. And you know, and we tested each other. They pushed me and I pushed them. And they're as much to the credit over the years of my career as hopefully I am to them.
Yeah. Stu, do you want to pick it up? Because I'm conscious I've been talking for quite a while.
Yeah. Some more general questions, I think. Now, because you mentioned you've had a lot of time to reflect and sort of look back over time. What would you say is your proudest moment of coaching the Blaze?
That's a tough one, because I think, you know, we had so much success that I enjoyed it all. I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, obviously the Grand Slam, but then them 2 back-to-back years, and then I think what I'm proudest of is taking a club from the 4th level, winning the 3rd level, winning the 2nd level, winning the 1st, and maintaining that winning. You know, I think that the whole journey, and I think that's what I've been reflecting on. And you know, people over the years have asked me for, you know, everybody in sport, a lot of people talk for you, you know, and that's sport. That's sport, and that's what makes the world go round. And since, you know, social media has come in, you know, you get your smart people on there, and you get your idiots, and that's just society. I was reading 2 days ago Liverpool's forum, and some Liverpool fans wanted Klopp out because he lost 2 games, and I'm just like, you know, whoa, this guy's the best thing in the world right now, you know. But hey, that's what it is. But I think the journey of where our club has come from, with me, Andy, and Mike, and Peasy. Peasy's done a lot of work. Sally, you know, Smalley, you know, Nicky, Phil Adley back in the day, lovely Johnny Crook and his wife, you know, and Diane and I mean, we sacrificed, and I don't think people understand. Anyhow, I don't need anyone to say X, Y, and Z, but I sacrificed a massive, more than the rest, part of my home life and my kids' upbringing for this passion of winning, you know, for this trying to be the best that we could be. And, you know, there was periods where my wife will be showing me, over this period of showing photos of the kid. I can't even remember where we were at that point, you know, because it was so full on. So a big thank you. I mean, I haven't been around for my daughter's birthday for I don't know how many years, you know, because I'm playing or I've been away. So the sacrifice that we put in, and it's not because I want people to go, oh, you are. It just took a hell of a lot. And I think by the time I'd finished the Blaze, I felt that I was taken for granted a little bit for what I had done. And because that happens when you do it for so long. That happens in any walk of life. And I was exhausted. I was mentally fried. And it took a lot out of me. And I felt that I wanted to grow. And I'd done everything. And leaving Coventry broke my heart. You know, but I felt it was the right thing for me at that point. And, you know, I gave up a bloody good job with BT with a big pension, a big salary. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and what have I done? What have I done? I don't even know if this thing's going to work down the road here. You know, but it's the passion. And if you have that passion and you have that dream, go for it. You know, go for it. And you'll make it work somehow. So, yeah, my proudest thing is what we built the club from to what it is, you know, what it is currently. And it's in the hands of Stewie now. And Stewie's perfect person for the club, because you have to do a lot at the Coventry Blaze on your own from a team perspective. And Stewie's the man to lead that. And Chuck did a great job when he came in as well. But Stewie has had a great year, and it's a shame that maybe you couldn't have finished it off with a trophy. But yeah, there's to answer your question.
And maybe on the flip side of that, well, you mentioned you only had a couple of regrets. You didn't have some big ones, but you know, what would be your biggest regret over that time period? What, you know, if you could go back and do one thing differently.
Oh,
yeah.
I should have stamped my feet more, you know, and it was done for the right reasons. You know, it was done to keep a team in the league, which could have affected Coventry, but 100%. It divided the club at that point, and I hated it. And not divided it deliberately. And we didn't know that at that time, that you can't divide loyalties. We're the Coventry Blaze, and that's how our fans see us. So, you know, that was, I don't want to go on about it. It was done for the reasons. It was done for other reasons that were going to hopefully make Coventry and keep them at the top, but it did the opposite.
And you mentioned about the players that you've signed and some of the players that you managed to bring to the club. Were there any players that came over to the UK that you nearly signed and you maybe stood on the bench thinking, would have been great if we'd have got him? Yeah,
lots. I mean, because, you know, we're all... If there's 200 players out there, there's 10 teams looking at the same pool, you know. So, yeah, I mean, bloody Jody. I pretty much done the deal. Who was the big defenseman, a great player in Sheffield when Jody went there? Steve Munn.
Oh, yeah.
We pretty much done the deal with Steve Munn. Jody had gone to Sheffield. Munn had rang Jody to find out what Coventry was all about. Jody goes, hang on a minute. He rang Dave Matsos or wherever it was, and then they came back with obviously a bigger bid. And I couldn't get to that at that point. So, you know, he's a great player. There's a great example of a great player that I think would have been perfect for what we were. But then he had a great career in Sheffield, so he made a good decision himself.
And how about, you've mentioned a lot of, you know, players who you feel, you know, maybe underrated. You mentioned Matty and Tommy, and who would, you know, is there any other guys who you sort of stand out in that sort of category, that players who you maybe the fan didn't see everything that they did on a sort of night in, night out basis?
I mean, I think, you know, I've always liked my role guys, because they're the ones that bring you the 7 out of 10 every night, you know. And guys that can swing guys, you know, that can go back on D for you, or jump on the wing for you, or play in the middle for you. So I think, you know, guys like Matty, guys like, you know, Shuggy was another one. You know, Shuggy was a very good player. But I think at the point, and Taka in his early days. I mean, we brought, going off again because you got me going. But I mean, when I brought Task back in 2007. It wasn't for his waistline. You know, he was living the good life. He wasn't, I think he'd finished playing in Newcastle. But I felt that what Task brings a room, and how he lightens the room. And he was suffering with injuries at that point. He had real bad back problems. He was done, effectively. But I brought him back for one last hurrah, because I knew how he'd energise the room and what he'd bring to the room. So, I mean... You know, I think a lot of the British players always get overlooked a little bit, because, you know, the star players are generally, unless you're a Weaver or a Tate, or, you know, the star players are generally your imported players. But, you know, KC Timmins, he came in and he just filled a hole for us, and he did exactly what I needed him to do. He was a smart player. He was a smart hockey player. And he continually did the right things. You know, Greg Lieb was a good hockey player, both sides of the puck. You know, him and his brother were on their way down from a career point of view. You know, getting the other side, 32, 33. But Greg Lieb was a very, very, very smart hockey player.
Because Greg Lieb played in the NHL with Dallas for a couple of games when you couldn't be 5'6", 5'7". You couldn't be. No one was.
Yeah, beautiful skater, you know, a great hand and eye. And I mean, he played in the DL for Nuremberg for 10 years. So, you know, he was a good player. But I think I didn't chop and change a lot. If you actually go back, you know, because I don't think we got, every coach gets it right. Every manager gets it wrong. We all get it wrong. It's impossible, you know, to go through. But I don't think we got it wrong too many times. And I think, you know, when you look at our rosters, and before we did this, I started looking at the rosters, because you forget. You just need, you know, I mean, I've coached over 2,000 games, you know, the odd thing you do forget. And you think, you know, we didn't have 40, 50 players a year, you know. We had that nucleus, and we maybe made that, you know, that change, that one or two change. But Yeah.
So I guess, Tomo, we talked about how leaving the Blaze broke your heart, but not a lot of British coaches have gone to coach elsewhere outside of the Elite League, outside of the UK. And you went to Sweden as an assistant coach, and it worked out how it worked out, and you ended up with the head coach there. And that Troy Lumby team was on the rise going into kind of the postseason.
You know, I was a little fascinated. I mean, my good friend, you know, and my agent, Gunnar Svensson and Bjarne Madsen, and God bless him, Gunnar passed away a couple of months ago there. But I did many study trips, you know, over the whole period of my coaching, you know, going to coaching seminars and visiting clubs and always trying to improve. And I think that's the key. Even as a coach, you want to be better. And I go to study trips in Sweden, and I really enjoyed the Swedish game and what they did. And I was fascinated why and how they had so many players in the NHL. You know, second highest percentage of players after North Americans in the NHL. So when I had a chance to go there, I didn't want to go there as a head coach. You know, I wanted to go there as an assistant coach, and I wanted to have a support mechanism. I ended up getting the job, but it was a great experience for me, and something that I brought back into my coaching with what I've learned there. And you know, and then it was away from anything Blaze like, you know, and I followed the Blaze at that point, obviously, and wanted every success for them after I'd gone. But I enjoyed my time in Sweden. I learned a lot in Sweden, and about the physical side of the game. I mean, the shape and the condition that these athletes are in over there it blew me away how far you can actually take an individual. And so after that, I came back, and then the Aalborg job came up, and the Aalborg job intrigued me a little bit. They flew me over to tell me all about it and interview me, and Aalborg was a big club, and it had never won. It had never won a championship, and it had spent a lot of money, and you know, and they totally revamped the budget. I mean, the budget had gone right down. I mean, they cut thousands and thousands of euros off of it, and they had a great junior system in Aalborg, and they'd never really, you know, spoke with the juniors or worked with the juniors to an extent that to bring these young kids through. So the manager at the time really wanted me to galvanize that, bring that together, and bring these young kids. So it was a totally different job to anything. I mean, the Troyer job was tough because we were a low budget team there, but I mean, 5-6 players ended up in the KHL, you know, the NHL, you know, and the SHL, and they went on to have great careers. But in Aalborg, it was about bringing these young kids through. And I think, you know, we had something like 5, 6, 16-year-olds, you know, 2, 3, 17-year-olds, 3, 4, 18-year-olds. I mean, kids. And, you know, we used to have meetings every Tuesday with all the junior coaches. They had a B team, and then they had an under-20s and under-18s. And we used to shuffle all the players around so they made sure they got their minutes. And I loved it. I absolutely, and I knew we weren't going to win, you know. We wanted to win, but I knew we weren't going to win because it was in a total rebuild situation. So at the end of that, at Christmas time that season, I got a call from Sheffield, and I wasn't interested. No, I'm really happy where I am, but I'd been away from home for 2 years at this point, you know, so it kind of planted the seed a little bit, if you like. And but I was offered a 3-year deal in Aalborg, and I was going to stay in Aalborg. And it was a project that I was really, really, you know, looking forward to. I saw the potential of these kids, and anyway, I didn't. And for family reasons, more than anything, that I took the decision to go back to Sheffield, and I really enjoyed, especially my first 2 years. I really enjoyed Sheffield. I'm not going to deny that. And I know, you know, from a Coventry perspective, it put a lot of people's noses out of place. How could he do that? But you know, I'm Joe Blow. I've got to pay a mortgage like the next person, you know. And I never envisaged me coaching against the club that, you know, I'd been a big part of building. But you know, you don't know where life's going to take you. And when someone pays your wages, you know, you go there to win. I wanted to win with Sheffield. There's no doubt about that. when I left Sheffield for many reasons. Tony Smith knows the reasons. And I left Sheffield but I left it in a way better place than I took it over it. And, but I left because it was the right thing. I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't enjoying where I was in my career at that point. And people say in hindsight, should you have stayed in Allberg? No, I made a decision, and we made a family decision. I joined a great club, a big club with a big budget that was, built to win, and we did win. We won a league, we won a playoff, and we lost in the final of the playoffs, and we lost in the finals of the Challenge Cup in 3 years. We did have success during that period, but it wasn't for me eventually. And people make all these stories up and this, that, and the other. No, that's what it was. So my career took me to Sweden, to Denmark, then back to Sheffield. In Sheffield, it's a lot of work in Sheffield. It's a lot of work. It's a big, big club. And I walked out of Sheffield and left Sheffield. And then the call came, from my agent in Schwenningen. And I one of my friends said, don't take the job, because you're in a situation where you can't be successful there. But there was no way I was not going to give up an opportunity to coach in the DL. I was deeply disappointed that me and my assistant coach were let go, because I honestly believe we were part of the solution there. But it's a big business. We hadn't got off to where we wanted to be. I still believe that we could get to that 10th place, which was there. But, you gain loads of experience. It's a fabulous league, a fabulous country, fabulous league, fabulous players, fabulous hockey. And it's where I want to get back to. I mean, I won't deny that. But to put the Sheffield to Coventry thing to bed, no one in Great Britain is retiring in the Bahamas, coaching and playing ice hockey. I have to pay a mortgage like everybody else. And I don't regret taking the job. I enjoyed my time in Sheffield, especially the early parts of it. It was a big, big club, and it's even bigger now. And but I know I upset some Coventry people along the way. And but that's going to happen. That's going to happen. But this conversation I'm having with you guys here today is 90% of it is about the times we had in Coventry and what we had in Coventry. And I'm so proud. Coventry will always be in my heart. That will never, ever, ever change. It can't change. It's impossible. I think I've been a big stamp on what's happened there over the years with many other people, with Andy and Mike. So that's never going to change, never going to change. But when I was coaching Sheffield, I wanted to beat Coventry. But I tell you, that first game in Coventry, I have never, ever, ever been as nervous in my life going back into Coventry. I can't remember if we played the Blaze on the Saturday or the Sunday, because on a Friday afternoon, I'd drive back home if we were playing down south, and I'd meet the bus or whatever, or drive to Coventry. I can't remember, but I remember it started the day before, and I was dreading it. I was absolutely dreading it, everything about it going back there, and which helped a little bit, but it wasn't a night I enjoyed. Put it that way. I enjoyed the result because I was paid by Sheffield, but I didn't enjoy the situation.
Yeah, it's funny because you kind of skipped over a lot of Aalborg because you're a growth coach. You look at it's 18 years by my count with Coventry. You can't grow a club more than that. You're all about growth, and that team from the seeds you sowed. A couple of years later, they're winning a cup, the Danish Cup. A year or so after that, they win the championship. And what you did with Sheffield, again, the same thing. You built them up for some success. They're still having success now. Won the only piece of silverware on offer this year in the Challenge Cup, and I guess that's the kind of organisation you want to go into next, isn't it? Somewhere where they're in that rebuild phase, where they're going to invest in you and give you that length of contract.
Well, I'd rather get the job in Mannheim or Munich. I won't deny that, but that's not going to happen. But the Allberg thing, I had when they won the championship, their first championship, I got a lovely letter from the chairman or one of the major sponsors, and he just said, you were a massive part of this, but it's took 3 years for these kids, and obviously the coaches since have done a tremendous job. But now Aalborg has a team that everybody's jealous of in Denmark, and it has so many of its young kids that have come through and are an integral part as 20-year-olds now, and that's what it's about. So And I tried to do the same thing in Coventry. I did the same thing in Sheffield with the Shudras and the Liam Kirks. I mean, Coventry gained a great player because I took the option that Liam Kirk was going to be the guy that was going to get to the next level quicker than, and you don't always get it right, than Luke, Lucky Ferrara, right? And I did Stewie a favour there. He owes me one for that. No, but I didn't, because at the time I didn't see Luke jumping ahead of Dowdy, and I saw him as a fourth line guy, and I knew I couldn't keep him as that because he was coming on. He was better than that. So, and then I had young Kirky coming through. So, you make that decision based on where you are at that point.
Yeah.
And I don't regret that decision. And now Luke's gone on, Stewie and him have a great relationship. Stewie's took him to the next level, and you could see that this season. And I think it's great that a player that was probably very much in demand has stayed with the Blaze. And I think that's what we used to do. We didn't just, way back. I think there was a period with the Blaze where it was accepted that was okay, you're going to lose, or it's accepted we're going to finish in 8th place. Don't accept it. And I know with Danny Stewart, he's used to winning. He knows what it takes to win. And I think he's come a long way as a coach, and now he's bringing and he's putting his stamp on what's happening in Coventry now. And Luke Ferreira committing for the next 2 seasons is a massive, massive step forward for the club. You know what? And they've had some tough times, and the club and Andy and Mike have stayed with him because, and I knew, like we all do, we all get stick, these days. It comes with the job. It really does come with the job, but it's not enjoyable. And at times when you're working as hard as you are and people don't understand what's going on behind the scenes, it can be a little bit frustrating. And Danny rode through them times. And the club, Andy and Mike have stayed with him because they see what he's doing. And I've seen him, I've been down and I've seen him and how he's doing and how he's progressing. He's a good coach. He's a very good coach. And he proved that. And I think he's proved that over the last couple of years, not just this year. And, where everyone talks about his goaltending, but, he's moving the club in the right direction and he's moving it back to where we all want it to be.
It's funny, the coaching gig, because there's so many perceptions of it. And I wanted to ask you earlier in this chat, actually, you talked about going away to Sweden to learn, because it's such a balance, isn't it, of prep, systems, and managing the people. And that latter, managing the people, is probably one of the biggest bits.
It is. And I've been coaching for 26 years now, and it's the managing the people has changed because you're in an information world now where if somebody wants an answer for something, they don't even type it anymore. They just go, Siri, what's this? So everybody wants everything yesterday. And you have to adapt. As a coach, you have to adapt to the climate and the people and that are around you. And, when I go into Europe now, I might have a staff of 8, 9, 10 people, goalie coaches, video coaches, assistant coaches, junior coaches, blah, 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 blah. And you're kind of more of you're a coach, but you're more of a manager. Where in Great Britain you're doing it all, And I see Adam Keith, another guy that's really done a great job in what he's doing. Cardiff, superb job that they've done there. I tip my hat to the coach there and what he's done and how he's been successful over the years. But it's not an easy job over here, I tell you. And it takes but I think when you move on, you realise that because you've had to do so much within an organisation, it puts you in pretty good stead for what's, going to happen at the next level over in Europe. And you're prepared for everything.
Guys are moving around. Rob Wilson's done really well for himself. Went to the O. Pete Russell in Del 2. Corey.
Yeah. They all have. And hopefully, hopefully that these guys continue to have success. So, I'd like to see more British coaches getting the opportunity and having that opportunity to grow, because me being British and everything else, it's not been easy, Stu, you said what's your proudest moment, and obviously with the Blaze it was the whole thing. But I think personally my proudest moment is I've never wanted to stay still, and I'm an English guy, I'm a Brummie that got to the DEL, and I want to go back to the DEL, and that's a big proud thing for me as well. That and I had chances in my Blaze career to go to the DEL. Way back, and I stayed. And hindsight, should I have looked and have moved on earlier? But hindsight's a wonderful thing. We were winning everything, and we were having a ball a great time, unbelievable, lifetime memories, lifetime friends. So I think, you know, you just got to keep growing as a person. That's the key. Everybody wants to grow, and or should want to grow, because you get something from that. And I don't know where my next, you know, gig job will be, but I know I've never been out of work before, and I'm chomping at the bit, and the wife's chomping at the bit to get rid of me as well, I think. So, but it's different times now, and we'll just have to be patient on what happens.
Stu, have you got anything to close out with?
No, just a big thanks for coming on and joining us, and chatting to us so openly about times in Coventry and elsewhere. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
No, it's been great. You know, like I said, Craig, I mean, because you've been putting on these games, and you sit back and you kind of got a sense of pride and enjoyment, you know, and you don't really enjoy it when you're in it. I know that sounds crazy. You enjoy it for a very small space of time, because then you're moving on again. So, you know, to sit back and reflect and look what's on my wall behind me, you know. So it was, you know, a huge part of my life, Coventry, and it's still a huge part of, you know, you know, there isn't a club in the country that I would want to win more than the Coventry Blaze, unless I'm coaching against them.
You got the ring on from the Grand Slam. I noticed that earlier.
There it is.
Yeah.
I took that to me, you know, the first year in Germany. I took that as good luck, and I used to wear it in my pocket, my Grand Slam ring, every single game. And I didn't take it with me on the second year. That was a bad omen.
Wow.
And now I'm back here.
For now.
Yeah.
And at some point you'll have to write bench 2.
Yeah. No, Anthony Hopker and myself, we worked hard on that. I mean, it's 3-4 nights a week at his place. You know, 3-4 hours a night going through that. I mean, he did the donkey work on that. I just, you know, told him what we'd been up to. But yeah, I think there'll be another book. I think there should be another book. There's a lot to say. You know, Coventry had just got to that point, and I think there's a lot of good things to say around that, and some good stories and some good times, and you know, then going off into Europe and everything else with GB. It's been a long haul, but it's one that I want it to continue. I still, you know, after 30 years in the game, I'm still chomping at the bit, still loving it, and still, it's a drug.
Yeah, it's that adrenaline, isn't it? The winning.
No. It is, and it is all about the winning. You know, that's what keeps you going every day, is the winning. And but then, you know, you have to understand what the winning is to where you're at. You know, and I'm lucky over my career that the majority of my winning has been winning. You know, where winning in Schwinningen would have been 10th place. We didn't make it, and I'm back here.
Paul, this has been brilliant. Thank you so much for doing this. I mean, to close out, you've made the Coventry Blaze what it is. You've touched a lot of different lives, and you will continue to in your career wherever you end up. You won't lose touch with the Blaze, and we're glad you won't. And whatever happens for you next, wish you all the best, bud. And I think we'll all be keeping a close eye on you. So thanks again. And everybody for watching this. It's been a bit of a long one. Might have been split into 2 parts. We don't know for this point. We don't know what's going to happen in a few months. So stay healthy, do what the government tell you to do. So I can commentate on hockey with Stu. Paul can coach some hockey, and you guys can watch it. From us on Blaze TV, thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Cheers, guys.